Welcome to the More Podcast with Ava and Najee, where we are manifesting original rich bitch experiences. Each week, we bring you travel reviews, wellness advice, and general millennial musings with a level of refinement. What level? It fucking depends. Hey Najee, how are ya?
Good. How are you, Ava?
Good. We are all situated here, settling in for another week and another great conversation.
Love it. How has your week been since I last talked to you?
It's been it's been honestly kind of hectic. My mom was in town visiting in London for the last week,
Ooh.
and we had a lot of fun. And she just left at 5 a.m. this morning.
Mm.
And today's a travel day for me, so I'm switching home bases again, which is always a little bit hectic with checkouts and check-ins and just getting the Wi-Fi and my life situated. I'm getting pretty good at it, but it's still a little disheveling.
Yeah, I totally understand. I think I said last week, I'm so proud of you for doing all this because I know I
Oh,
just could never. It's a lot.
thanks, boo. So I thought of you when I woke up though, because today is the first day of your season. It's Virgo season.
Oh, it is Virgo season.
Congratulations.
Thanks. We finally made it.
We made it.
Like, we finally made it. And I'm just excited to celebrate all season long with the queen of all Virgos, Beyonce.
Yeah.
So I mean, I will be playing Virgo's Groove pretty much every day for the next month, just to be very clear. But definitely happy it's Virgo season. And yeah, welcome to the ride, everyone. It's
What's
going
the
to be great.
vibe? Like, obviously, Leo season was so much fun, so much play. What's the vibe for Virgo season?
Virgo season's definitely more so of a transition. Obviously, we kind of start to transition into the next season for fall. Kids start going back to school. We have our new fall TV lineup. So you got a lot of new seasons coming up. And
Mm,
honestly, we're kind of transitioning from the hot girl summer to the chill girl fall. And honestly, it totally fits my aesthetic 1000%. Fall is always going to be my favorite season. And honestly, it's just time to basically just really live our best lives. Everything's going to calm down. And I've also heard and read reports that travel will be calming down as well. So that
yeah.
summer rush is going to be done. So hopefully, a lot of people are looking into maybe taking some trips if you can, and just really like enjoying those shoulder seasons where there's not tourists and a whole bunch of people and very high prices everywhere. So that's
Mm.
really what we're looking forward to for this Virgo season as we're getting started.
I appreciate all of that. That sounds good to me.
Amen.
What else are you up to this week? How's it going so far?
So far, so good. This past week has been a little bit of a wild ride since what I call my awakening from our last episode, learning so much about human design with
Yeah.
Kelsey. So, ever since our conversation, I've really been kind of like taking it bit by bit and looking into my chart and just trying to learn a little bit more. And it's been very eye opening. And I've been kind of having a lot of fun doing it with my youngest sister, who's kind of a
Mm.
cosmo queen herself. She's all about like the moon and the stars and the celestial beings. So it's been fun kind of exploring our charts and seeing the similarities and differences. So honestly, I'm still on that wave.
Love
I'm
that.
still kind of identifying my not self themes. I'm fully trying to roll into my incarnation cross, which if you guys forgot, it's the right angle of the vessel of love, and really just trying to embody all that. Because I very much vibe with it.
Gorgeous. Very
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Side note, but my birthday is actually on the International Day of Peace, which is like my self theme. So I'm obsessed with it.
Oh my God. I love that. Did your sister know her human design beforehand, or did you introduce her to it?
She knew it. She knew that
Yeah.
she was a Manigen, but she didn't really
Mm.
understand like anything related to it. So basically, I just gave her some high level overviews on how to read her charts, what her not self theme meant, how to read channels and gates, and what each of the centers really meant. So it was very telling. I think it tracked with a lot of what she knew about herself. And I think it kind of opened the door for her to learn even more. So it's been fun.
That's so cool. And I love that you are sharing it with her, which is a great example of a tool that we use to understand ourselves better. And this week, we're actually going to be talking about another tool that we can use to know ourselves and strengthen our relationships with others. So, drum roll, please. This week's topic is the five love languages.
Yay! So this week we're talking about the five love languages. We'll go over what they are. We'll share what our top two love languages are, how they manifest in our day to day life, and basically similarities, differences, and how things may shift through time. I think love languages is a very, very important thing to know about yourself and to ideally to know about your loved ones as well. That way you can kind of foster the best relationship you can, and really, really good, solid relationships help bring up the best of us each day. So I'm really excited to get into this conversation.
Me too. So, where should we start?
Why don't we start with listing out the five love languages and basically just giving a very short, high level definition of what each one is?
Okay. The five love languages, well, it's a book and it's a body of research by a marriage counselor, Dr. Gary Chapman. But I think it's more commonly referenced now just in like pop culture and life. Like people say like, oh, this is my love language. Like, and it may not even be tied to one of the five, but like, have you heard that when it's like,
Mm-hmm.
pasta is my love language? Or like,
Yes.
flights, catching
Yes.
flights is my love languages. So it's so funny
All of
like
that.
how it's become like part of just our like language now. But I read the book many years ago and it's kind of dusty now. I think it's like it was published in like 1992. But it's essentially just sharing the concept that not everyone gives and receives love in the same way. And I think this is huge when it comes to looking at your own relationships, not only romantic, but with friends, with family members too, because this can be like a huge game changer when it comes to like feeling seen, feeling loved, feeling cared for. So I know that this is something that for me, I've had probably the awareness for the last, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years. And I think it's super helpful. So I'm glad that you suggested this topic.
Yeah, I think not only does again it embodies my incarnation cross, but I think it really like plays a big role in how we relate to each other and how we actually understand each other. And it's also just very, very telling on like who we are to our core as well, based on how we give and receive love and how our partners also give and receive love as well. So
Hmm.
super glad we're touching on this. Looks like the first love language is words of affirmation, which basically is just verbal expressions of love, appreciation, and encouragement. So basically, something like says, I love you, I appreciate you, kind of verbalizing a lot of those sentiments really makes people who have that love language that is words of affirmation really feel seen and very feel loved, really feel appreciated as well.
Hmm.
Next, we have quality time.
Hmm.
Quality time kind of falls into giving another person your undivided attention, or just really kind of spending that really close physical time doing maybe a hobby, a chore, an activity. I mean, this can look like something as simple as watching TV. It could be something as simple as traveling together. It honestly could be something as simple as talking on the phone, even if you guys aren't like right next to each other. You're
Hmm.
spending that time kind of connecting without anyone else or any other distractions.
Yeah. And then the next love language is acts of service. And this would be that sort of doing errands for someone, like basically just doing things for other people. Sometimes asked, but also sometimes not asked. So, an example of this could be like, hey, I took out the trash, like very mundane, non sexy example.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be like, hey, I'll go pick up dinner for us tonight. But really,
Ugh,
just
yes.
you're like, yes. But just doing something for somebody else that could either take something off their to-do list or could be just a nice, pleasant surprise, act of service.
And then it looks like we have physical touch, which is basically just connecting through appropriate, consensual physical touch. And that can be that can be intimate or non-intimate. It could be something as simple as a pat on the shoulder, holding hands, a really big hug, just a gentle touch on the leg that's not super intimate. People that have this particular love language, physical touch, typically feel seen, loved, and activated when there is some type of like physical boundary that's being broken.
That's being broken. Or not broken, according to them. And then the last one is receiving gifts. And I feel like this one, people are like sometimes a little hesitant to be like, my love language is receiving gifts because sometimes it could be taken as more of like a superficial love language. However, that's not necessarily the case. This is really about, someone, and not just like a gift, but someone actually going through the thought process of like picking out something that they really think you would love. So it's really about that thoughtfulness and that heartfeltness that's connected to gifts. But these people typically feel most seen and most loved when they are receiving gifts.
Awesome. So that's quality time, words of affirmation, physical touch, acts of service, and receiving gifts. Those are our 5 love languages. Now, similar to Ava, I kind of learned about the 5 love languages probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And at that time, I took the test. I was in like a very long term relationship that has since ended, and I've been single for 3 years now. So Ava challenged me to take the test again. So I took the test again as a single person. And I believe, Ava, you took the test again too
Yeah.
more recently, right?
Yeah, we both took it. I think we retook it today
We
just to
did.
give the freshest information.
The freshest information, but I was also interested to see if and how things would change.
Yeah.
Ava, what are your top 2 love languages today? And did they change from when you last took the test?
So my top two is actually top three because my first two are literally tied. So,
Ooh,
fun fact, I have three top love languages.
out of 5.
Are you surprised? So, my
Absolutely
number
not.
one is quality time. Very, very,
Hmm.
very important to me. The ultimate is quality time. And in fact, nothing pisses me off more than the opposite of quality time.
Oh.
So, if we're together and you are looking at your phone the whole time, for example,
Mm-hmm.
not into it. If we are never together, not into it.
Not your jam. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
this comes, in different forms of quality. It's like amount of time, I think. And then also when you're together, like what is the time like? Or at least that's how
Right.
I like see them kind of split out in my life.
Hmm.
So that one's always been super important to me. And then my other top love language is physical touch. And so
Mm.
this is what I was curious about when it comes to like retaking the test, specifically thinking about like post pandemic us versus like pre pandemic us.
Hmm.
Because when you have something like a love language that's literally not possible, like almost illegal, right? It's like you can't leave your house. You can't see anyone. Like you're not supposed to hug anyone. You're not supposed to touch people. Like you don't want to get them sick. Like that was a
Yeah.
very kind of drastic experience for myself with the physical touch love language.
Yeah. It was
And I was like,
intense.
well, maybe I've like now adapted a new love language because signs of the times. But my love languages did not change. So quality time and physical touch are still number one. And then my number two
Uh-huh.
is words of affirmation.
Got you.
So 0 points, 0 points in the quiz allocated to gifts, which I think is kind of funny.
That's so funny. Okay, and then I guess low on your list is also acts of service.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And that one, I don't know. I feel like sometimes it would be nice. Like I've always been like very independent. And so
Hmm.
I'm like, I'll do this myself, or like I'll do that myself, or I already did it, usually is the case. But sometimes I'm like, damn, it would be nice if someone would like help me out with something. So I'm like, we'll still accept acts of service around here. They just,
Yeah. I think to be fair, all of the love languages are probably like all of our love languages, all of our love
yes,
language, but like it's important to know like what's most important because there's levels to this, right? Levels
there's
of
levels to
refinement to
this,
this.
levels of refinement. And like, I also still enjoy receiving gifts, even though it says I don't.
All gifts are accepted here.
Right.
That's so
But yeah,
funny.
my top love languages are the quality time, the physical touch, and the words of affirmation. And they have not changed since the last time I took the test. What are yours? I'm so curious to know.
So my top two have not changed at all. Actually, to be very clear, the only ones that changed were the bottom two, and it was flipped.
Oh,
But my top two languages are acts of service still
okay.
and words of affirmation. Those have not changed at all, which I'm kind of happy about. And sometimes I'm a little like, I don't want to say insecure, but I feel bad about them because obviously my love language is like, oh, tell me how great I am and do things for me. I'm independent as well. Again, I'm a manifester, so like I just do my own thing and I don't want anyone to get in my way. But when someone goes out of their way to do something for me, I almost want to cry. Like it's that serious because I'm like, you really didn't have to do that. And 9 times out of 10, I probably wouldn't want to do the same thing for you. So for you to do that means a lot for me. Oh my gosh. And words of affirmation, yeah, I just really like hearing great things about myself. I mean, who doesn't?
Who doesn't, honestly?
So it's super high on my list. Gifts, when I first took the test, was actually at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but now it's second from the bottom. But
Mm,
the percentages is still like lower than 10%. It's really appreciated, but I think I love the fact that you thought about me enough to do this more
mm-hmm.
than the actual gift.
Yep.
And that feels like it's more related to words of affirmation than the actual gift, right?
Mm,
So
mm-hmm.
I don't know. That was just me like thinking meta about it. But my love languages have not changed.
Yeah.
So if anyone's wondering, tell me how great I am and also do things for me. And that will just like literally make my day.
And heavy up because it's his birthday month.
My
No,
birthday
almost
is
birthday month, birthday
coming.
season.
It is coming, baby. So let's talk about how these love languages kind of manifest in our day to day interactions. And these can be interactions from the past and also more recent ones from the present, because I know that how they look in a relationship might be different than how they look when you're single, or it might be looking different if you're communicating with a loved one like a family member versus a really close friend. For me in my life, my mom, I really feel like her love language is physical touch,
Mm-hmm.
and that is probably, well, from my most recent test, it's at the absolute bottom of my list. I feel like I'm a pretty affectionate person, but it's just not the way that I typically show love. So just seeing that dynamic is a little tough. Sometimes it feels like you're doing something that's not intuitive just to show that you love someone, but it's also taking into account their feelings as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of one way that these differences in love language kind of interact with each other, and how I think through like overcoming it. So sometimes I'll like go out of my way to give my mom a hug or something like that because I know she'd really appreciate it. But sometimes it's just hard.
Yeah. Well, and when you don't do that, it's like maybe your mom's over there thinking like, "Oh, does Najee love me?" When it's like,
Right.
of course, but like you're just not always like it's not natural for you to be like showing it in the way that she needs to receive it. And that's an example of like where those disconnects come through. It's like you're literally not speaking the same language. And because of that, there are breakdowns and like you both feel a way about it, even though that's not your intent.
Exactly. It's very, very, it's a little bit of a tricky web to kind of like go through when it comes to love languages and people you love, because you don't want them to feel slighted, upset, or even worse, that you don't love them.
Right. As someone with the top love language of quality time, I feel like that just comes through in just the way I am. Like it's the way I receive and it's the way I give. And so I think if I'm to reflect on all of my relationships, like business, partnerships, friends, family, there is an inherent level of that happening. Otherwise, I
Hmm.
wouldn't feel like this is a
Hmm.
relationship to maintain or this is a
Hmm.
relationship to have. So I think in some instances, it can be so ingrained with that type of a love language, for example, that it's
Hmm.
like the byproduct of that as my top love language quality time is like I have built a community of people that I feel like we can spend really quality time together. Like you and I doing this podcast once a week where like we get together, we talk, like we have awesome conversations. Like this is literally a living example of my love language. And so I think some of them like are kind of naturally ingrained. Now, do I say the same about physical touch? Like, no, not as much. But I think that's how I
Hmm.
really see that play out in my day to day. It's like it's almost like a prerequisite, maybe not like cognizantly, but like it's a prerequisite for all of my relationships, which is kind of cool.
Is the way that you receive love the same way that you give love, do you think?
That's a good question. I feel like I give love, like I'll try all the things. Like I'm really someone
Hmm.
that will like try to get through to you if I want to like show you that I care about you, I will really try all the things like to try to make it
Mm-hmm.
work. Because I was thinking about that too. And it's like, well, I also like to give gifts to people and I also like to do things for people and I also like to do all these things. So I feel like I just like go through the list. I'm like, is this gonna work? Is that gonna work? If it's a relationship where we haven't had like the literal deliberate conversation of like, what's your love language?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I'm pretty good giver on all of them. But again, it's like you could buy me a gift and I'd be like, okay, thanks, but like, and dot, dot, dot. So I don't know. How do you feel? Does it go both ways for you?
You know what? I feel like it's a bit of a conundrum, but I feel like it's not. So, if my top way of receiving love in my eyes and per this quiz is acts of service, I love when people do stuff for me. And I literally said all of 4 minutes ago, I probably won't do the same for you. I'm a little bit in a conundrum. If I'm actually going to go out of my way for someone, it's got to be because I really, really love them, and it's because I feel like it's going to be appreciated. And I feel like sometimes that's not as apparent in day to day regular relationships. Like for my partner, like when I'm in a relationship, acts of service is definitely probably the top way that I give love. Like I will do laundry, I will cook, I'll run errands, I'll put gas in your car, like because I am that much in love with you. But when it comes to more casual relationships with like friends and maybe even some family members, I think the way that I most intuitively give love is probably quality time. Because I think that's also a big deal for me to give too. Because a lot of times I like to stay in my cave by
Mm,
myself, kind of like isolated. Even though I love people, I love life. I love my friends and my relationships, but sometimes like I just feel so comfortable like just being by myself and doing my own thing that for me to be able to kind of give that quality time, whether it be a phone call or spending time together, I think it really is a really great way to show that I love you. So if I really actively want to spend time with you, I think that's a pretty big deal for me. And that's the most intuitive way I know to give love just overall.
So, does your quality time giving feel like an act of service when you do it?
I
Did we just unlock something?
mean, I guess it would be an act of service if quality time is their love language.
Uh huh.
Mm, it's so weird. So I guess maybe that quality time could double as an act of service if I know and or feel like quality time is one of their love languages. Like I know my entire family, like my all my siblings and my mother, not my dad. But I think quality time is definitely one of their biggest ones because they just I can tell they really enjoy like either hanging out or communicating with me.
Mm-hmm.
And they act like whenever they have the opportunity to, it's such a treat. And I'm just sitting here like, I'm literally just living my life and talking to you. But it has also made me more cognizant of like this is important to them, so I'm going to answer their calls and engage and be present even if I don't feel like it at
Mm-hmm.
the time.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the really useful pieces of, first we have the knowledge of understanding what our love languages are. And then
Hmm.
we go out and, have the conversations with our close relationships so that we know what theirs are. And then it is really like doing that application, like you just mentioned. Okay, if my family's love language seems to be quality time, like I'm gonna give them what they want, because that is really
Hmm.
like the work in all of this, to have deeper relationships, to connect with people better. um, and one of my friends does this like really 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 well. So my friend Kristen, she literally knows every single one of her friends love languages, and she'll deliberately be like, Ava, we need to get together. She knows that I want to see her because like I need that quality time. And like she'll actually go out of her way to do that for our friendship. And then
Hmm.
she could be like, oh, okay, well, so and so is, gifts. And so she'll make sure that and she's always really thoughtful of gifts, but like she'll be go out of her way to be like, okay, so and so needs like a really like well thought out, really thoughtful, like really nice gift. And so she's an example of someone in my life who's really, really great at knowing all of her friends' love languages and then actually making an effort to communicate to each individual in their preferred language, which I think is like a phenomenal friend, honestly.
I mean, shout out to Kristen because I mean, I met her a couple years ago. She was so sweet. And the fact
Yeah.
that she does that literally puts her all the way up here for me because I am trying to get to that level. Like, definitely trying to get
Yes.
to that level. So, just to have that level of consideration, care, and love for those that you love, because sometimes it's very hard, but I think she's cracked the code. So, maybe we'll have to have her on the next episode.
Elite. I know. Exactly.
So, Ava,
Yes.
does your love language, the way you receive love, differ when it comes to the different relationships you might be managing in your life? Whether it be like a romantic partner, a family member, a business partner, do you think that they might shift based on the level of your connection with that person, or is it just like the same throughout?
Mm, I feel like it's kind of the same throughout, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
feel that, I mean, if we're talking about physical touch, for example, like obviously there are different types of physical touch, and like, but it's like I want to hug my friends, or like sometimes I hold hands with my friends, um, and I want to make out with my boyfriend. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's the same, just like catered to like what's appropriate, like what type of relationship is this?
Right.
And again, since I feel like quality time is just such a like mm, almost like easily like generalized type of value, like especially when we talk about things like being present and being off of our screens. Like, I feel like it's almost just more ingrained in a lot of the awarenesses and conversations people are having nowadays about just like being present. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that quality time is a pretty consistent love language I experience in all of my relationships. But what would you say? Do you think that you have like different experiences with different people?
Again, I don't know because I want to say it's the same throughout. I feel like any type of active service or like word of affirmation will definitely make me feel love, whether it be um, friends, family, colleagues, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I feel like it might shift a little bit for me sometimes. Like from certain people or certain relationships, I think I might value words of affirmation or quality time more than I actually value an act of service. And maybe that's only because I view acts of service so highly as far as like going out of your way to do something. And maybe I just like don't expect or want or like even think about acts of service in the way of showing love because I know if the shoe was on the other foot, sometimes I might struggle performing those acts of service. So I don't know. I think things that have to do with like the heart and feelings and emotions always throw me for a little bit of a loop.
Mm.
And it has my brain scrambled, my mind all over the place. So I don't know. I don't know. I think it
you're
might
you're
differ,
also
but maybe not.
yeah, you're also a more mutable person. Astrology wise, like you're
My
a lot
sign
more
is mutable.
mutable.
Yeah.
Like I'm very fixed. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's the same across the board. And I hear
Yes.
you saying like, well, maybe some of this or maybe some of that. And that's just like a very like mutable trait.
Yeah, I mean, it's also reflected in my design chart with all the open centers I have. It's very
Mm.
much open to interpretation, it's open to influence, and it's open based on just like what the situation is giving. I don't know. I don't know. But I do know that acts of service is my number one. So I guess if anyone were to do that in any way, shape, or form, that'd be super helpful.
Noted. I think the takeaway note is like, do something nice for Najee.
Yeah. I mean, my life theme is I love doing what I want to do and not doing what I don't want to do. So if anyone can assist in that process, I'd be greatly appreciated.
Please and thank you.
Thanks.
So we don't have any overlaps really in our love languages, except for maybe the words of affirmation.
Yes, your words of affirmation was two
Three,
after,
technically. Yeah.
well, three technically after the tie top two, and mine's number two.
Yeah.
I think learning that quality time was your love language is definitely an eye opener for me. I'm not really sure if I would have pegged that as your love language.
Really? Why do you say that?
I don't know, but maybe because I just haven't really been thinking about it that much. Maybe I would have thought like, hmm. Now that I'm like replaying a lot of these things in my mind, it actually makes sense. You can tell I don't think about this stuff too much.
Well, I mean, until we like get together and talk about it, it's like a good.
Oh, okay. Wow. So funny.
You're like, actually,
Um,
I'm rewinding our last three trips and it tracks
yeah, I just think I'm thinking about the way you communicate too, like
thoroughly.
very thoroughly, very, I don't want to say excessive, but it's a lot. And I'm like, this is cute. Oh,
It's a lot.
it's a lot. Yeah. Not like in a bad way, but like in a very like, oh, I'm really enjoying our discussions kind of thing. And I'm like, cool, awesome. And it's not that I don't enjoy our discussions, but as I said before, I'm so used to like being in my own world, like very self-involved. And I don't think it's a bad thing, but it can be a bad thing. So maybe I just need to like wake up a little bit and step outside my little cave and be like, what's going on out there?
You're so funny.
Sorry.
I would like to clarify though. I'm not like an all the time communicator.
No, you're not.
It's like it'll be a very lengthy multi point, maybe text message once a week,
Yes.
not like 10 paragraphs a day every day.
Correct. And if I made it seem like that was the case, I retract my former statement.
Well, I don't know. You just said it was a lot. So thanks.
Oh gosh, here I go again. Okay. Yes, I've
You're
had
so
guys,
funny.
I've had this issue with my family members too. I'm like, I don't not love us speaking. I'm just so much in my own world and sometimes I just need to be pulled out and I'm so sorry.
You're so funny. This is good. We're making good content right now. This is great
I
content.
mean, it's very, very eye-opening just to see the way people kind of think and like interpret love languages, actions, communication styles. It's just very, very interesting. And you know what?
Hmm.
I might, for my birthday, I might want to revisit the human design conversation again because I found your chart really interesting.
I love that you have all, it's been like a week and now you're like a professor of the language of human design.
You know, I'm trying.
I
I'd
love
probably
this for
say
you.
maybe an apprentice.
I love
Maybe an
this for you.
apprentice. Like
Oh,
it's one way that I just learned so much more about myself to really identify like how I interact with the world, how I show love, how I embody love, things like that. So, you know, it's a process.
yeah,
All this is a process.
it is. And there's a lot of layers, obviously, of information, layers of knowing, all these different tools. And it is fun to see how can all like interconnect too. Or even like I think we've talked about human design, love languages, and astrology on like the last 5 breaths. So it
Mm,
really is
mm,
like just pulling
hmm.
together all these elements to like form a full picture of like how you are and who you are and how you relate to other people. And it is like there's a lot to dig into if it's of interest to you. And I think for our listeners it probably is, we hope so.
Yeah.
But it's like a literal lifelong process.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the more you know about yourself, the more you can show up as your full and authentic self. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can remember in my last relationship, I didn't really get that many words of affirmation. I did get a
Mm.
lot of acts of service, which was super helpful, which I still appreciate to this day. I don't forget about that. But when you're missing something that you do feel so important to you, it almost feels like there's a gap there.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes when I reflect on that last relationship, I'm thinking, okay, well, did he really love me like that? Because I really didn't
Mm.
get, you know, those words of affirmation or that reassurance that, you know, he was really into the relationship like I was.
Mm.
And then maybe if I express that better, because I know I expressed it a couple times, maybe if I expressed it better, I would have just felt a little bit more I don't know, love, comfortable. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's really about kind of knowing yourself and kind of like being able to assess the situation as it is and really diagnose some of the issues or uneasiness that you might be feeling in your spirit and really pointing to like, okay, is this the problem? Is our love language different? Can we fix this?
Mm-hmm. Did you have like deliberate conversations about your love languages?
Yes, we did. I don't know if he was as into it as I was. So obviously, us having these conversations of great interest to me and probably our listeners. He probably not so much.
Yeah.
But honestly, I also realized that in that relationship, you can't make people do what they don't want to do. So they either care enough or they don't.
Totally. And I kind of had a similar situation in my last relationship where it was like, okay, when Amazon does like Prime Day.
Oh, yes.
Okay, it's gonna sound so silly, but it was Amazon Prime Day, and the 5 love languages book was on
Mm,
BOGO. Buy one, get one free. I'm like,
nice.
this is perfect. I'm gonna buy this book because like I had taken the test before, and I was like, I want to read more about it. I'm gonna buy this book and I'm gonna give a copy to my boyfriend so he can also take the test. A, one, he had never done it, and two, like understand what I keep trying to tell him. Like, we need some quality time together.
Yeah.
Gave him the book. Had it for months, didn't touch it.
I don't like that.
No, I don't like that either. When we broke up, he literally referenced the fact that like he didn't read the book. And he's like, I know that like it was so weird, but he's basically like welcome to After Hours with Ava and Najee. Basically what he told me was he knew what I was asking was like a very logical, very like simple thing. Like, I want to spend more
Mm-hmm.
quality time with you. You don't want
Mm-hmm.
to spend more quality time with me. Furthermore, you don't want to acknowledge that you don't want to give love in my preferred language of receiving, to the
Mm-hmm.
extent that you literally won't even open this book, but you know about it because you tell me about it and like almost apologize when we break up. How
Hmm.
wild is that?
It's very wild. It's just like I'm a little flabbergasted, to be honest.
I know. So
So confusing.
that BOGO book went to waste, but
Yeah. Well, fun fact, know your love language, communicate your love language. And if your partner, friend, colleague, or whatever doesn't want to communicate in your love language after they know about it and you gave them the book, maybe they're not the one for you.
yeah, it's a no for me, dog.
It's a no for me. That was a great takeaway.
Oh, that'll do it.
That will do it. I think that's the overall theme of life, um, and our conversation. Oh my gosh. Is there anything else that we might want to share about love languages?
So I think the key concept and takeaways is essentially knowing your love language is a great tool. Communicating your love language to the people that you are close with is another helpful tool.
Mm-hmm.
And then going that extra mile to try to communicate to your loved ones in their preferred language is like, that's the goal. I'm not there yet, but I would like to be that person, that friend who's like, hey, I know you love gifts, and so here you are.
I mean, same here. I'm aspiring to be that great because receiving and giving gifts are just like not my thing. And I'd rather not go out of my way to give a gift. But again, I'm trying to be like Kristen. So
There we
thoughts
go.
and prayers.
All right. Well, what are you loving and leaving this week?
This week, we're loving Virgo season. Happy Virgo season, everyone. Play Beyonce's new album, Renaissance. Play
Mm-hmm.
Virgo's Groove.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, Virgo season is life. And I'm happy that it's finally here. So we're loving that. One thing that I am not sure if I'm loving or leaving is apparently I learned from my cosmic little sister that Mars will be moving into Gemini for like 7 months or something.
Mm.
And I'm not really sure what that means because my Mars is in Gemini. And it's the purpose or the reason why sometimes my energy just feels so chaotic and up and down. So I don't know how I feel about that. But I know that I'm absolutely leaving any and all car issues.
Ooh.
Well, I can tell you recently my instrument cluster has basically just failed, stopped working. For those who are listening, your instrument cluster is basically where a lot of the dials are on your dashboard that tell you how fast you're going, how much gas you have, things like that, right behind the steering wheel. I had to learn and Google that.
When you texted
And
me that you had a problem with your instrument cluster, I literally thought it was a typo. I was like, okay.
I kid you not, I literally had to Google all this stuff. So I'm gonna make this long story really short. So my instrument cluster failed.
Uh-huh.
I had to actually look up like what that meant because I was like, oh, my dash lights aren't working or something like that. So I think instrument cluster failure was like the first thing that came up. I watched this YouTube video with this old man who knew mechanics. Shout out to that old man. And he basically taught me how to take out my instrument cluster and send it off to a suggested retailer to actually get the motherboard fixed and then reinstall it instead of going to a dealership or a car shop and spending almost $1,000.
Mm,
So shout out to that man. Shout out to YouTube because I basically saved like a good $600
mm,
taking out the instrument cluster, sending it off to get fixed. And hopefully, when I do get it back, it'll be fixed and I can just put it back in and I wouldn't have had to spend $1,000 on it because I don't know about you,
mm,
but I don't really have $1,000 to be spending on my car. So
mm.
shout out to that man. But we're leaving all car issues.
Yeah,
Don't like that.
I don't like that. I will say it's been very nice not having a car in London. The fact that my car is in
Mm,
storage and I don't have to fill it with gas, I don't have to pay the driver's insurance on it, don't have to touch it, is
yeah,
a luxury. It doesn't
I
work
can see
everywhere.
that.
It only works here.
Uh, I still feel very uneasy about having a car, about not having a car, I would say. Like I got my car 5 years ago and I just can't imagine my life without it because I feel like I'm always like on the go, especially when I lived back in DC. Like I
Yeah.
was always back and forth from DC to Philly and everywhere in between. And sometimes even New York too, I would go. My friend Justin, who lives in New York, recently gave up his car, and my heart hurts for him every time. But I mean, he's saving hundreds of dollars each month. So I guess I get
Hmm.
it. But just the freedom and the flexibility of
Yeah.
having it.
I think you have to live in one of those cities where it's an actual option. Like in Minneapolis, I have to have the car. There's no way in hell I could ever function without it.
Yeah. I know in DC, a lot of people that live in DC don't have cars, but they also don't have like friends and family out in Maryland or Virginia that they need to go see. So it is what it is.
Yes. Okay. We're leaving behind the cars this week.
Yeah, it's done. What
Hmm.
are you loving and leaving this week?
Something that I'm loving. Well, my mom, as I mentioned, was visiting for the week, which was super fun.
Yay.
Yay! And I kind of retraced some of our footsteps from our trip and took her back to a couple of the restaurants that we loved. So we went to Bao and we had some steam
Ooh,
buns.
love the steam buns at Bao.
I know. And then we went to La Pet and had those coconut curry noodles, chicken. It was delicious.
Oh, the Burmese place.
Yes, the Burmese place. But what I'm
Hmm.
loving about it is that it was just as delicious the second time.
Oh, that is amazing because sometimes it's not, sometimes it doesn't hit the same.
No. And frankly, a lot of the things I've been like retrying haven't been hitting the same.
Mm,
So sometimes it's like, wow, something seems really good. Either it's like, man, you haven't eaten all day, or you're just like so thirsty, or you're this or you're that. So, like, and just novelty too. I think it's like
mm-hmm,
something new. It's like almost tastes better. It's weird.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But La Pet it was almost better the second time. And I love that.
Ah, I
Yeah.
love it too. I'm so glad you guys were able to visit because I know that was definitely a highlight of our adventure
Yeah.
in Shortage. Did mom love it too?
She absolutely loved it. We added something
Mm.
onto the order, which I wish you would have tried. It was a turmeric pisco cocktail. It was phenomenal.
Ooh, I love turmeric
I
a
know.
lot.
I know. I know you love cocktails.
Ugh, obsessed with cocktails. All right, adding that to the list next time I find myself in Shortage.
Yes.
Turmeric pisco.
Yeah. So I really love that. This week, I am leaving behind jackhammers.
Why jackhammers?
The sound of a jackhammer at 8:30 in the morning on a Monday is not the way to set the tone for the day or the week
Mm,
or the season, frankly. I have encountered so much construction here. It seems like on every corner there's construction, and it's really disturbing the peace.
That's another way London is very similar to New York. Literally
Oh
construction
my god.
everywhere, all the time.
But it's like, it's literally been every single place I've been.
Man,
So
jackhammers.
I'm leaving behind the jackhammers, and
Damn
really,
those jackhammers.
I know it's really tied to the sleep. Like, I feel like I haven't slept well in 2 months. So
Mm,
we'll see. We'll see where life goes.
we'll
But
have to
I'm
fix
looking
that.
forward to, hopefully, Virgo season. It is more of like a slowdown. I feel very frantic and chaotic and like fried and frazzled and tired. So,
Mm. Is it because like all the moving, or is it
mm,
specifically the jackhammering? Is it all the above? Like, what do you think it is?
yeah, I think it's just the environment. So, well, the interesting part about my astrology chart is that I'm an Aquarius sun and a Taurus moon and rising. And so Aquarius loves this lifestyle where I'm somewhere different every single week. I'm moving, I'm grooving, everything's new, everything's exciting. Taurus, not so much. Like the fact that I can't control the type of pillow I'm sleeping on, or like the darkness of my room, or, and I think this bleeds into again, like the human design chart, because my environment of choice is like a cave where you
Hmm.
can control the elements, and I can't control shit right now. So I think it's just a combination of everything.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
I think the fun part about like your sun sign is supposed to reflect your personality at your most comfortable. So
Hmm.
if you're moving about all the time and end up staying next to places that are being constructed on, that's definitely not going to be your most comfortable. So your Aquarius probably won't shine as brightly as it typically would.
Yeah. I need to be polished. I'm a little I'm a little dull right now.
Well, hopefully Virgo season does get better
We'll
for
see.
you. I know London will probably calm down a bit, so hopefully things will be on the up and up for
Yeah.
the rest of your journey.
Yeah. Fall vibes. We're going in.
Love it. Okay, well, that's a wrap. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, rate and review us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, and tune in every Wednesday to hear the things that make us and discover a thing or two to make you more you. See ya.
Bye.